I have my matchmaker hat on, and these are the fights that I need to see after UFC 306. Around the screen, I have all of the key fighters from this past weekend's card, and I'm going to matchmake for all of them. We're jumping right into things. No BSing. We're going right to the world title. Merab needs to fight Umar Nagomedov. It has to happen. There's no duck game, Merab. You can't avoid this fight. We heard him at the post-fight press conference. Well, Umar doesn't deserve it. He's talking about how Umar only fought one guy that was in the rankings, and that guy was Corey Sandhagen, who's extremely high rated. You're going to give him Davison Figueiredo instead? That doesn't make sense. That's the fight that Merab wants because he recognizes Umar Nagomedov is the worst stylistic matchup for him because he's a quality wrestler who has pretty good kickboxing skills. Umar is not just a typical Dagestan smash from top. He's a well-versed hybrid style of fighter who's slick on the feet and a savage wrestler, which I think equals bad matchup for the machine, Merab Dvalishvili. Merab took out the hype train in Sean O'Malley, and he's still not going to be favored by the UFC. So I am expecting them to try and pressure him into a fight with Umar Nagomedov, maybe when he's not ready. Kind of like what Sean O'Malley and Aljo looked like, right? They forced Aljo to take the fight, talked about, oh, it's a big opportunity. You can take his fan base. You got Hunter Campbell convincing him, and Merab's a company guy. He's not going to say no. They're not going to give him Davison Figueiredo. Figgy does not deserve a title fight after beating Marlon Vera in a fight that afterwards I thought, damn, if that was 5 rounds, Marlon probably would beat him. Umar has a win over Corey, who destroyed Marlon Chito Vera before Vera fought for the damn belt. Umar's the guy. The Nurmagomedov name also has a ton of power, right? So it's a very sellable event. They want to build Umar as the next great fighter, especially for the Abu Dhabi scene, the Middle East, the Muslim fan base. They're going to be all over this fight. It's 100% getting pushed. Yo, it was Riyadh season, Noche UFC. The oil money's invested. They want their fellow Muslim brothers to thrive in the UFC. And Merab, you're fighting Umar Nagomedov. I don't think Merab is scared of Umar, though. I know, we're kind of talking smack about him, and there's been kind of words around, oh, he's worried, he's terrified, this is a horrible matchup. He tried to shut down the Umar talk. It's not that Merab has no chance against Umar Nagomedov, it's just a bad matchup. Merab thrives in guys that he can take down or at the very least smother against the cage. Very much a huge question mark whether he can do that. I personally feel that Umar can halt the wrestling attack and can definitely beat him in the stand-up. Umar is just simply a cleaner striker. So with the quality takedown defense, it becomes a rough matchup for Merab. Like, Sean O'Malley, I also think, looked relatively flat in the fight against Merab, and I'm not trying to go out and make a million excuses for him, but he really could not find his timing at all because of such a strong fear of the takedown. Umar is not going to be fearing that damn takedown. And yo, we heard it in the 3rd round. They were already selling Umar as the next guy in line in round 3 on commentary. You think that's not the fight that's going to happen? The UFC pulls the damn strings. The UFC is making this fight, and it's also the biggest fight you can make outside of an O'Malley fight. Merab Davison Figueiredo doesn't sell. That doesn't make any sense. That fight is stupid. Okay, Davison Figueiredo, Petr Yan, he beats Petr Yan? Sure. Yes, now Figgy's in line, and whoever's the champ at the time, they can face off with him. But it's not going to be Merab's first title defense. He's not going to have the Sean O'Malley picking of opponents, right? He's not going to get like a Marlon Vera fight. There is no layup title defense. It's going to be the biggest threat to Merab. It's going to be Umar Nagomedov. Unfortunately, Merab's a great guy, but he might be a one-off champ because I really think Umar beats him. I really see it already. Umar, 49-46. Merab could have moments. He might even take Umar down, but I don't think he has the control time. I don't think he can beat up Umar on the ground like Merab did to Sean O'Malley. You're not going to see Umar all gun-shy out there and terrified of a takedown. 0%. It's going to be Umar getting up if he is taken down. I don't know so much about him taking down Merab, though. But I think he's going to be able to defend the takedowns and technically outstrike him. And he's going to take 4 rounds. So I would probably pick Umar Nagomedov. I get why Merab doesn't like the fight. Because he knows. He's a smart guy. He knows it's a bad matchup taking on the Dagestan Savage. But They want another Nurmagomedov at the top. It sells. The Khabib legacy. This fight's a guarantee. Write it down. This is a lock next fight. I don't know if it's going to be in 2024. I wouldn't be surprised if it's pushed to close out the year. I think it's a possibility. We see it in December. Merab Umar Nurmagomedov. It's a big main event. It's going to be the fight. And they want Umar Nurmagomedov with the belt over Merab. That's just how it goes. Welcome to the damn UFC. Now, next up, Sean O'Malley. Who is he going to fight next? I sat on this one for a bit. The obvious choice that I think many are expecting is Corey Sandhagen, right? Wrong. It's not going to be Corey Sandhagen. O'Malley already spoke upon he's going to need to take some time off because he's got a torn labrum. He's going to be getting surgery. That lands me on Jose Aldo. The timelines might work well. Aldo's supposed to be fighting in a couple weeks. He's actually taking on O'Malley's teammate, Mario Batista, in a fight that I think last time I looked, somehow Aldo's an underdog. And Aldo's takedown defense is amazing. I think Aldo's got a great chance to win. I'm sure that he wins. I think it's a high likelihood chance that Jose Aldo beats Mario Batista. And I think that Sean O'Malley and Jose Aldo is a perfect fight. I know the Henry Cejudo fight kind of looms too. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I feel like this is a cool fight for O'Malley too. Because if you're able to beat Jose Aldo, you're right back in the mix. Especially if you beat him in a striking fight, which, damn, tough to do at 135. The worst case scenario is Jose Aldo was able to beat Sean O'Malley. And then you have a legend in Jose Aldo back in the title picture fighting like an Umar Nurmagomedov. It's kind of a win-win for the UFC. I don't think that Sandhagen is necessarily on the UFC's good side. He's a great guy, but I don't know why. He's not going to get the push from them. Then they're not going to do a Sandhagen-O'Malley fight. I think Sandhagen-O'Malley is a fight that will eventually come to fruition, and I think that it'll still be there. Like, Aldo could beat O'Malley or O'Malley could win. He could fight for a belt again. Doesn't matter. The Sandhagen fight will eventually come, but I just don't think that's the fight just yet. I think that O'Malley is going to take on a legend. I think they're going to use him for a super fight because although O'Malley is a huge co-main event, it's a special 5-round co-main event. Not that the Sandhagen fight isn't a 5-round co-main event, but something just tells me that isn't what the UFC's foresight is. They like the idea of an Aldo coming off a win, getting placed in a spot to take on Sean O'Malley in a battle of elite strikers, and O'Malley, the former champion, Aldo, former champion and legend of the game. If somehow O'Malley wins, which actually somehow is maybe not the word, if O'Malley goes out and wins, it essentially catapults him right back into the title picture because that's a legacy win. You're beating one of the greatest of all time. With a loss, it sucks for sure. And I mean, I guess it would be kind of bad for the UFC if an aging Aldo wins, but not the end of the world because then Aldo's right back in the title picture and Aldo's not a bad guy and he's not really not out of a fight against anybody at 135. The Jose Aldo that we saw against Martinez looked clean as hell, and Aldo's most recent MMA losses against Merab, he got smothered. So kind of cool to see two guys, O'Malley and Aldo, who struggled with Merab's pressure game. I like the fight. I think Aldo and O'Malley makes a ton of sense. It's a great clash of strikers. We'll see how O'Malley would do with the legendary Brazilian Muay Thai of Jose Aldo. If he goes out and knocks Aldo out, I think O'Malley's stock is just as high as him being a champion. Yeah, if he loses, we can look at the negative. If. Let's not go through the ifs. Either way, this fight happening next is the fight that I'm expecting, and it's a fight that I want to see. O'Malley, Aldo, sign me up for it. Let me know in the comments if you agree. I think this might be an unexpected turn of the next fight to make for O'Malley, but I feel like their timelines might work out. I think Aldo might need a few months off after his Batista fight because he's been pretty active in 2024, right? 2 fights in his comeback, kind of close together. And I think that they might perfectly be in sync for an O'Malley return against Jose Aldo in a #1 contender fight. Yes, please. I want it. Let's make it happen. Next up, Valentina Shevchenko. I think you guys all know. This one's obvious. Manon Fiorot. What are we doing? Why wouldn't she fight Manon Fiorot? I actually feel like this is a pay-per-view main event fight. I know a lot of people would disagree because of Valentina's performance with Grasso being a smother fest. But I think right now, this is like the most intriguing fight in women's MMA. Outside of maybe getting, Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes out of retirement to face her, I think this is one of the coolest and most elite matchups that women's fighting has. You have high-level stand-up and high-level grappling on both sides. Both girls are incredibly skilled. Fiorot seems to be the face of the future, right? She essentially seems to be like a Holly Holm Shevchenko hybrid. She's the new blood. And I feel like a matchup against the flyweight GOAT for Fiorot is a sensational fight. I personally think this could be a main event in a Europe card, maybe even on a fight night. I don't know where in Europe they do it, but a thought that came to me is maybe a fight night title main event. This is definitely a main event worthy fight. I don't know if the UFC is going to do it because Shevchenko was a bit of a snoozer here. But if you look at Shevchenko's history, she's normally really entertaining. And Manon Fiorot is such a good fighter. She's such a damn technician. I love this fight. I think this is a dope fight. This right now is the most exciting fight to me in women's MMA. I'm very curious to see how will Shevchenko deal with somebody who's like as elite as her on the feet and really has shown like zero chinks in her armor. Where's the weakness on Manon Fiorot? Alexa Grasso, she had the grappling weakness and Shevchenko exploited it. Fiorot's going to be a hell of a fight for Valentina. I think she might struggle. Sign me up for this one. Valentina Fiorot, lock it in next. I would guarantee that this fight is happening unless there's some type of injury. But if not, assuming all circumstances are good, these two are facing off. Next up, Alexa Grasso. I think that her and Rose Namajunas have to fight. I don't care about what happens with Erin Blanchfield. Win or lose against Erin Blanchfield, I think Alexa Grasso and Rose Namajunas is a massive fight night main event in 2025. Could potentially be a pay-per-view fight too, but I think this is a really good women's fight. I don't know if they're going back to Mexico City anytime soon. You put Grasso on a fight night main event. She's still a huge name there. She's the former champion there. I think we got to do Grasso and Thug Rose, and I'm curious how the clash looks, especially depending upon the result with Erin Blanchfield. If Thug Rose looks as good as always, clean as hell against Erin Blanchfield and wins, I think this fight is even more intriguing. Now, even if she loses, though, to Erin Blanchfield, I still just want to see her and Grasso fight because they've never crossed paths, but they were both strawweights at one point, and then now they're both in the flyweight division. It just seems to make a lot of sense to me, and I'm curious how this fight would look. I feel like Grasso definitely has good hands, though she looked pretty mid against Shevchenko. It's freaking Shevchenko. I do think she has pretty slick jiu-jitsu. You can see the Diego Lopes influence on her. And then you have, Thug Rose, who's incredibly well-rounded. I think this fight jumps off the page as a good fight. No matter what the outcome of Blanchfield and Thug Rose, I would sign up for this. This would be what I want next. Please, women's MMA main event, cool fight, clash of former champions, and I think it's going to be really fun. So yeah, Thug Rose, Alexa Grasso, I want that next. That fight makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope the UFC actually decides to book this thing. I think there's a high possibility that they do, and I think I'm going to be perfectly on point with the women's MMA picks of who's fighting next, because I feel like this one is already written in the stars. Next up, there might be some disagreement. Diego Lopes versus Ilia Topuria. Now, I know this might not be the most likely next fight for either one of them, but depending on timelines, it could work. Now, you could argue, okay, but Volkanovski's the damn featherweight GOAT, so he should get another shot against Topuria. We're assuming Topuria beats Holloway. But if Topuria loses to Holloway, I think this fight would be even more likely. But let's assume that he wins. I understand Volk is right there to get the rematch against Ilia Topuria. So, it could be a fight that doesn't happen. But I'm curious to see this fight. I don't know. I feel like Lopes has become such a damn star, riding high off of a really impressive win at Noche UFC. I kind of feel like this could be the perfect timing to have the new blood clash against one another. Two guys who are great everywhere. Topuria has more punching power, I would say. And I would say Lopes with the size advantage could be an interesting factor. Now, there's an argument that Diego Lopes has better BJJ, but Topuria is also pretty high level in grappling, and I could see him on top of Diego Lopes, but still really cool fight because Lopes with the size edge poses a threat to maybe hit Topuria with a massive knee, and with the length, I feel like Diego Lopes is just a cool fight for him. And it would also be the first championship fight that doesn't have Volkanovski or Holloway attached to it at 145 since 2016. So why not do this? Let's go. New blood. I'm not going to bet money that this is the next fight that they do. I think there's a high probability that they decide to do a Volkanovski rematch with Topuria. But the Lopes fight is simply more interesting. I really don't think Volkanovski can adapt and beat an Ilia Topuria, whereas Diego Lopes might be the guy to beat him. Now, depending upon what happens with Holloway, there's a lot of circumstances that could end up making this fight not next, but I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I personally think this is a better fight than a Topuria-Volkanovski rematch. I think this is a bigger fight. I know you can say, oh, but Volk's a legendary name in the game. Yeah, but Diego Lopes is the now. Like, he's developing a cult following. He's an emerging star. And why not match up the new blood? I want to see it. I want to see fights without Holloway or Volkanovski attached to it. I want to see title fights without either one of them. And I think this would be a dope fight. I know Diego Lopes and Evloev might be a fight. A second option would be Diego Lopes fights the winner of Aljo and Evloev, which I'm going to assume it's Evloev. So they might run that back because, you know, that was Lopez's UFC debut on short notice, and he did really well. But that rematch doesn't tickle my fancy. I'm not too excited about that rematch. I'm way more excited about the fight between Ilia Topuria and Diego Lopes. Might be far-fetched, but it's a fight that I would like to see next. And depending on timelines, this might be the matchup we get early 2025. Or who knows, if Topuria ends up going through Holloway without too much damage, maybe the Lopes fight opens itself up to close out the year. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. It's just, it would be a really fast turnaround. But like, let's say Topuria runs through Holloway, then he's like, yo, I want to fight one more before the year ends. I'm sure Diego Lopes is willing to fight him. He don't need even more than a 6 to 8 week camp. He'd take it anytime, any place, anywhere. And I think it would be a massive fight. So for me, Lopes and Topuria, and I know that's going to be a bit controversial, but it's what I like. Now, Brian Ortega is next. So Brian Ortega stated that he likes the idea of moving to 155. No, I don't want him to move to 155. There's some really bad matchups for him there as far as dangerous strikers go. He's also going to be at a bit of a size disadvantage. And it's not like Brian Ortega is shredded at 145. He always comes in skinny fat. So I would rather see him stick around. Let's do the Aljo fight. Assuming Aljo loses to Movsar Evloev, this fight is cool as hell. It's going to be a great battle of guys who are both good on the ground. I would say that the wrestling favors Aljo, jiu-jitsu favors Ortega. Who does the striking favor? I would lean Ortega having the better boxing. And this right here could be a special 5-round main event, or excuse me, if it's a main event, it's guaranteed 5, but I'm saying a 5-round co-main. Like, what if we put it on a pay-per-view card? Is this not worthy of a co-main event slot? Is this not a dope special 5-round fight? I know they might do it 3 rounds, but I just feel like 5 would be better. I would love to see these guys go at it for 5 rounds. And it's also a break for T-City on these damn power punchers. He has absorbed so much significant damage in recent fights. I like the idea of pulling back. Instead of giving him somebody with power, instead of giving him a guy who's dangerous on the feet, give him a guy who's incredibly good on the ground and a former world champion. I mean, Ortega's been so close to the top with 2 fights for the belt that just simply didn't go his way. And then on the opposite side, you got Aljamain Sterling, who's the former bantamweight champ, looked great against Calvin Kattar, I guess, depending upon what happens with him and Movsar. But let's assume he loses that fight, but let's say he looks okay, doesn't take too much damage. This fight could be a banger early in 2025, and it's the fight that I'm going to root for. Ortega and Aljo, dope matchup. I hope that it happens. I think this should be next. I do not think Brian Ortega should move up to 155 pounds. I think that's a bad idea. Now, next, we're going to match up some other guys. We got Rosas. He started the card off, but he's still a relatively big name, so I figured, let's do him right after the big fights. Rosas, John Castaneda. He beat Aoriqileng. Rosas is going to have to move up in some capacity. Now, what do? You give him another bottom-of-the-barrel guy or a guy with 1 UFC fight? I don't think so. You give him a John Castaneda. Castaneda's not an easy guy to deal with. Castaneda's got good wrestling. Castaneda's actually also got pretty good boxing. He's coming off of a loss to Daniel Marcos, who's a pretty talented guy at 135 pounds and definitely a surging prospect. So, I don't know. Matching him up against Rosas intrigues me. Now, I understand Rosas might not be ready for it, and this could be a second L for him because he didn't look great against Aoriqileng. But what the hell can I do? What am I saying? Oh, give him Cameron Simon, who's lost 2 in a row? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I think the more sensible option is you throw John Castaneda and Rosas together, a little Hispanic warfare, and let's see who can take it. Is Rosas ready for the next level? He said he wants to fight somebody ranked, so he's calling for big names. Castaneda is an obvious step up in competition from Aoriqileng. It's a step up in competition from Ricky Tercios. Is it too much of a step up in competition? Maybe, probably. But why not find out? We can't just easily move Rosas up the ranks. Like, well, what am I going to do? Oh, give him a guy off Contender Series. Give him a guy off a loss. Like, all right, give him a guy off a loss. And Castaneda, who's gritty, who's got wins in the UFC, who's got a lot of dog in him, who can bang, who brings good fights. I would rather see that. It's not a great matchup for Rosas, though. And I probably favor Castaneda to pull off a win as an underdog. I think Rosas will probably be like a 2-1 or 3-1 favorite, but I don't think those odds would be right. I think that Castaneda could outbox him. I think Castaneda could stop takedowns, and I think you could end up pulling off an upset. So Castaneda and Rosas Jr., I'm intrigued by that fight, and I'm hoping that the UFC ends up going down that route because I'm interested. I want that. Let's keep running. Next up, Ronaldo Rodríguez. He opened up the main card with a banger fight in Matt Schnell. I know he retired. Hear me out. Matt Schnell is not 100% retired, okay? We don't know for sure if he's retired. He said he's retired, but I feel like he might still have one more. Now, if Matt Schnell is retired, like maybe we do Joshua Van versus Ronaldo Rodríguez, but I kind of feel like, why do I want to throw two prospects that are in their 20s against one another? I'd rather give Ronaldo Rodríguez, another aging veteran who likes to bang, Matt Schnell coming off a loss, but to Cody Durden. Cody Durden's an absolute gangster. That's a hard fight. I like this matchup. Both guys like to scrap. Matt Schnell is a questionable chin. I mean, Ronaldo Rodríguez badly dropped. He has good durability, but you could say, shit, is his chin that great? I don't know. He's got definitely toughness. He knows how to scramble. Matt Schnell's got some dangerous grappling. Ronaldo's good on the ground too. It's a battle of aging veteran versus up-and-coming contender. And I feel like Matt Schnell needs to go through the ringer one more time. Instead of retiring after a loss to Cody Durden, who's close to that, top 10 area, top 12. He's definitely top 15. I would rather see Rodríguez match Schnell. Schnell gets a fight against somebody outside the rankings, somebody that's got a lot of fight in him, but somebody who has some obvious holes in his game. Rodríguez is not the cleanest striker. He doesn't have the best grappling. He's not the most athletic guy. It's kind of a fight that Matt Schnell could surprise a lot of people in. I would still probably favor Ronaldo Rodríguez to find a way because Schnell's chin is questionable and he makes mistakes in the grappling, and Rodríguez can definitely capitalize. So book me that fight. Rodríguez and Matt Schnell. If Schnell's retiring, okay, maybe Joshua Van, or who knows. But if he's willing to do one more, Rodríguez and Matt Schnell could be a really entertaining fight and one that I think is worthy of making happen. Next up, I got to do it for the feature prelim winner. Ladies, we got Norma Dumont, Holly Holm. I know the Macy Chiasson rematch is there, but it's definitely not in high demand. Their first fight wasn't that good. I'm not intrigued by a rematch very much so, but it is kind of like perfectly aligned because they're both ranked very close to one another. Dumont's currently on a 5-fight winning streak. The most recent loss she had was against Macy Chiasson, and Chiasson's got 2 wins in a row. So that could be the route the UFC goes down, but I kind of favor them matching Dumont up with an aging veteran / legend in Holly Holm. Now, I know Holm lost to Bueno Silva. Granted, I got overturned to a no contest. And then I know that she lost to Kayla Harrison. So she's, technically on a 2-fight losing streak if you include the no contest. And Dumont's got 5 wins in a row. So it doesn't necessarily make sense as far as momentum. But Holly Holm, former world champ, I still think she needs to be in big fights. Norma Dumont doesn't have a huge name. I mean, she won at Noche against Aldana in a good performance. Granted, Holly Holm also has beaten Irene Aldana, so this is still a step up in competition. Even if maybe it feels like a step back, this is a legacy win. And if Norma Dumont does beat a Holly Holm, she's much closer to the title picture. And the women at the top are booked. Ketlen Vieira is going to fight against Kayla Harrison in a number 1 contender fight. And then we have Raquel Pennington and Juliana Pena fighting for the belt. So maybe a bit of a log jam. So maybe they say, let's do the Chiasson rematch, and they give us a crappy main event for a fight night. I guess, is the Holly Holm fight much better? It is, because it's still Holly Holm. I would rather see Dumont Holm as opposed to Dumont versus Chiasson 2. So that's why I'm going to match make it, even if the likelihood is lower than a Chiasson rematch. I'm down for it. And our final go. Esteban Ribovics put on an absolute war with Daniel Zellhuber, and I'm matching him up with Ignacio Bahamondes. Both guys fought at Noche UFC. Both won. Both were actually underdogs. Ribovics took on Daniel Zellhuber, who was a tall kickboxer. Bahamondes also a tall kickboxer. Kind of like a cool prospect battle. Why not? Let's find out who's got the goods. Let's find out who's got it. Let's see who wins. Let's see who's the better prospect. I understand. They might want to, coddle Ribovics a bit or give him a different type of matchup or not, mesh the Hispanic market together with Argentina versus Chile. But I also feel like, what are we doing? What are we just coddling them? Like what? They did Zellhuber versus Ribovics. Why wouldn't they do Bahamondes Ribovics? Bahamondes ran over Manuel Torres early in the night. Torres was a surging prospect. I think Bahamondes and Ribovics also make sense. Both guys like closing in on their primes. Both guys showing improvements in fights. Bahamondes is a bit more UFC experience and obviously has 2 losses in the UFC. Ribovics just with the lone loss, but he's currently riding a 3-fight win streak. I feel like this still has an interesting feel to it. I want to watch it. I'm curious to see, because Bahamondes looked pretty slick from the outside with Manuel Torres. He was pretty precise with his stand-up. He picked his shots nicely and obviously knocked them the fuck out. And for Ribovics, he brawls a bit chaotically, but seems to have a really good chin and is willing to walk anybody down. So I'm curious how Bahamondes would deal with Ribovics' chaotic striking pressure. And then for Ribovics, how does he deal with having to get past the length of Bahamondes? He was able to do it with Zellhuber, but arguably Bahamondes is better from the outside than Daniel Zellhuber. And Bahamondes also a little bit taller, at least on paper. He's listed at 6'3". So Ribovics, Bahamondes, both big winners at Noche UFC. Let's match them up. Let's see who's the better prospect. Those are the fights that I think should be next. I want to know what you guys are thinking, though. Do you agree with my matchmaking, or do you think maybe I'm a little far-fetched in some? Definitely let me know in the comments. I want to hear from the people. I'm bringing this series back. I'm sorry it's a little late, but I told you I'm bringing it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe it up. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning into the show. Big W's to everybody. Much love, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.